Hello friends, welcome to channel. So this is the unit 5. Now today we are going to start the unit 5 and unit 4 we have already completed. So अगर आपने वीडियो नहीं देखा then you can go visit the playlist और वहाँ से आप unit 4 के सभी वीडियो देख सकते हैं. And today we are going to start the unit 5, that is research in the social work. Research means होता है अनुसंधान हिंदी में. And the first chapter that we are going to start today, that is the section 1, quantitative research, or you can say the मात्रात्मक अनुसंधान. So now let us start. Before begin, this is all about me, and you can mail me on this email ID for any query. Also, please join this Telegram channel so that you will get all important notification from this channel regarding the videos and the other notes. And also, if you want to join the paid group, so you can join this paid group, and you can text me on this number. So I will share the information related to this paid group. Now let us start. So first, we will understand the meaning of the research. So what is research? Research is an art of scientific investigation, and it is also a systematic design and the collection of data, analyzing the data, reporting the findings, जो भी finding आप निकालते हैं जो भी data से, and the solution for the problem. So basically the research used to solve the problem in a very systematic or scientific way. So what we do, we just to follow the some systematic design and collect the data regarding the problem. We just analyze the data and report the data in proper way and find out the solution of any problem. So a scientific undertaking which by means of logical and the systematic techniques. So what we do in the research, that is the very logical or systematic approach. So the aim of the research is to discover the new fact, or you can say new phenomena. We just verify the old phenomena, old fact and information. If you have something already, some fact or theory or something like that, so what we do by the research, you can verify the old test and also discover the new fact, and that is used for the analyze the sequence, interrelation, and the causal explanation. Like if you have more variables, or you can say more than one variables, so what we do, we just to if you want to explain, or you want to find out the some relation between the variables on the interrelation, or you can say the sequence and the causal explanation, so we analyze these things by the research. And the research also used to develop the new scientific tools, concept, and the theories, so which would facilitate valid and the reliable study for the human behavior of the human behavior. Now, what is the necessity of doing research? Why we do research? So the necessity of the research is to identify and the find solution to the problems. If any problems occur, if what we do, you just follow some systematic approach. These systematic approach is called as research, just to find out the solution and to find alternative strategy. For solving the problem, you have many strategy, but which study will be best? What you do, you do the research and find out the best and the alternative strategy for any problem solving, and to help the making decision. The best way to reach the decision is to make the do the research, do the research work, so that you can make, and it can be very helpful for making the decision and to develop new concept. As I already told you, that it can very helpful for the developing the new concept, and the so this is the necessity of doing research. Now let's understand the objective of the research. So what is the objective of research? The to gain familiarity with the phenomena, or the gain new insight, to find out the new insight about any particular theory, or you can fact or something like that. So or about the phenomena, so you gain familiarity, you will get more knowledge, more information, more insight. So this is called as the exploratory research. So what we will study further in the video about the exploratory research. So this is the objective. And the next, that is the to portray accurately the characteristics of individuals, group, or the situation. If you have some situations, phenomena, or something like that, so what you, if you want to understand the characteristics, you want to know, and you want to basically you want to familiar with the phenomena, so what do we do, just do the descriptive research, so you can get the all accurately characteristics, accurately trends of the particular person, particular groups, or particular situation. So this is the descriptive research, where you can find out the accurate characteristics and to determine the frequency with which something occur. So B, do the diagnostic test, or you can say diagnostic research. Here you can easily determine the frequency or something which is going to occur. And next, that is the objective is to determine the causal relationship between the variables. So when you have more variables, so if you want to find out the relation or the causal relation between the variables, so you do hypothesis testing, experimental research, or causal relation research. So these can be possible through the research. So these are the four objective of the research. Now you can see here the type of research. This is very important, एग्जाम में इससे कई बार क्वेश्चन पूछे जाते हैं. So the type of research, the first is the exploratory, descriptive research, action research, historical research, causal research, pure fundamental or the basic research, and the applied research. So all these research type we will discuss now. The first, that is the exploratory research. So basically this types of research provide the insight into and the comprehension of an issue or the situations. If you have any issue, any problem, any situation, any phenomena, so if you want to do a study or we want to find out something new or go inside the study, so you do the exploratory research. It will provide you very inside detail, inside knowledge. So this research basically focus, or you can say rely on the secondary research such as reliable data through the literature. You can find out the data from literature, or the qualitative approach such as informal discussion with the pupils, with the population where we are focused for the work. So these population provide you through the informal discussion provide the data for the exploratory research. And also you can for through the formal approaches like in-depth interviews, focus group discussion, case study, and the parallel study. These provide the insight for the particular situation. So carry out the very beginning when the problem is not clear. So this exploratory research used when the problem is not clear. Like for example, you have example here, the exploring the region for increasing the migration from the rural area. So in the present time, you can see the migration in the rural areas. So if you want to find out the reason for this, why this migration is increasing day by day, so you can the research, the expert research will provide the reason, or you can easily find out the problem. So which is not clear, what is the reason? So you can easily find out through the exploratory research. Next is descriptive research. Descriptive data and the characteristics about the phenomena, about the population is being studied. So through the research, descriptive research, you will get the characteristics, or you can describe the characteristics about any phenomena, any population where you are going to study. So you can easily understand the descriptive research. The answer, the question, these descriptive research can give the answer like what, who, and where, and when, and how. So the describe the characteristics of the respondent in the relation to the particular product, and which deal with the demographic characteristics of the respondent or the population, like you are going to study in a particular in tribal area. So if you do study on tribal population, what you will get the information, the demographic characteristics of the population, something like that. So you do descriptive research. Like when you are studying the human behavior based on the fact or the event, the researchers observe the characteristics, the behavior, and the reactions of the people, then use it, and then the researcher will conclude through this research, descriptive research. Next is applied research. So this is basically applied research used to find out the solution of the real life problems, so requiring an action. When these problems require an action or the policy decision, so before taking the decision or doing the action, first we do the research, that is called applied research. Here you can easily find out the real life problems. So it may incidentally contribute to the development of theoretical knowledge. So it can encourage and can enhance the theoretical knowledge about a particular problem. So contribution of this research is to, it can contribute new fact about the existing theories and put theory to the test, and also may aid in the conceptual clarification. So integrate previously existing theory, जो भी पहले से theory exist करती हैं उसमें something it can be integrate or add, and for example to develop a new market for the product. if any company launching the product in the market, do just so first what they do, they do just they study up the market, they develop the new market for the product. So what we do the applied research to find out the basically real life, how the product, how this product can be acquire the market. So by doing the applied research we can easily access the market. So this is the example. Next is pure and the fundamental or the basic research. So undertaking to for the sake of the knowledge without any intention to the apply or the practice. So basically the pure and the fundamental, or you can say the basic research, is only for the sake of knowledge. You can gain the knowledge. There is no commercial or financial benefit of this research. Like there is no directly involved in the practical problems. For example, theory of relativity by the Einstein. This is given by the Einstein. So if you do a study on this research, so you can get the knowledge, more knowledge you can get, but there is no commercial benefit of this research. Okay. Now the next, that is the causal research. So causal is conducted to determine the cause and the effect relation between the variables. Two variables have, you want to find out the cause, the effect of this particular variables. And this is basically research used in the medicine sector. Like they want to find out the effect of this particular medicine, so they just use this concept and this research type. So by seeing the how action now will affect the business in the future, you can say how this particular medicine can affect so particular people or the population. So they use this causal relation, causal research in particular different fields. You can share the example, like a clothing company selling blue denim jeans. Okay, now the causal research can measure the impact of a company changing the product design. If the company manager want to change the product design, so what will be the impact on their on their market or profitability. So they just do the this research called as causal relation research. They can easily find out what will be the impact if they change the product design. Next is historical research. Historical study is the study of past record, you can say past data that is already exist in order to understand the future trends or develop organization or the market. So there is no direct observation. So you can observe, you can study the past event or past record that already exist. Like you can predict the GDP. You have the prediction of 2022 GDP through the 2018, 19, 20. So just study these records and find out the and conclude and also predict the future GDP records. So these types of research called as the historical, or you can find out the study of the historical events like war, revolution. So you can do the study through this historical study, and the main objective of this study is to derive the explanation and the generalization from the past events, past trends, in order to understand the present situation or the anticipation for the future. So these study will do for the as a historical research. Shortcoming of the historical research, that basically this historical research based totally on the past event or past records. So there's always the possibility, or you can say the question of reliability or the adequacy, and also the verification of record is very difficult. So verification is there, the accuracy of the measurement is also doubtful, so this is also there. So this is the shortcome of this historical event or historical research. Next is action research. So basically this research, action research, is undertaken by the direct action, or you can say that this is conducted to solve the immediate problem. Like you can say the example here is that the girls lose confidence in their math ability when they reach middle school. So the teacher or the mediator, that what he will do, he will just intervene or that increase the self efficiency level of the female student in the mathematics. So this is the maybe actually immediate problem, that the girls lose the confidence in the math ability. So the teacher intervene and also increase the self efficiency, increase the confidence in the mathematics. So this is the problem, immediate problem. It can be solved by the action research. Now the next topic, that is the criteria of good research. So if you want to do good research, so there is some criteria always, so that you can perform the good research. Like the purpose clearly should be defined. The what is the purpose of research? We should have to clarify, and we have to define properly. So it should be very sharply, so that the ambiguity, or you can say ambiguous and possibility, that can be eliminated. And also the decision making process can be easily, if you clarify the problem, or you can clarify the purpose of the research. And it should be include some scope, limitations, and also the precise meaning of all words which we use, and the term significance of the research, what is the significance of all the words we are using in this should be very clarify and precise. So the purpose clearly defined. Next is research process detail. The detail, you can say, the research procedure should be very described in a sufficient way, in a sufficient detail, to permit the another researcher to repeat the research. If another researcher bind to do a study on a particular topic, so they can also get some information as a literature review from the research. So the researcher should provide proper detail of our work. Next, research design thoroughly planned. The procedural design of the research should be carefully planned to yield results that are objective as possible. The survey opinion or the recollection ought not to be used when the more reliable evidence is available for the documentary sources by the direct observation. So the researcher design that should be very thoroughly planned. The high ethical and standard applied. This is the most important, because ethical is always there in the research. So this is very more concerning if the researchers don't follow the ethical procedures. So that can be very difficult, or it can be very causing for the respondent, for their mental and the physical harms to the participant, and make the data integrity the first priority should be highly valued. So the researcher always should use the ethical concern. They should follow some ethical rules in the research process. And the limitation frankly revealed. So, what are the limitations in the research? That should be very clarify, and very completely frankness should be following flaws in the procedures design, and estimate their effort on the findings. So this should be a very clarify that limitations frankly revealed in the research work. Analysis adequate for the decision makers needs. Analysis of the data should be extensively enough to reveal its significance. So what is the significance of the research? So it can be easily revealed through the data analysis. So what managers call insights, the method of analysis should be used very appropriately. So now next, that is the conclusion justified. If you are doing research, there are always the conclusion, but this conclusion should be very limited or very justified to the problem. It should not be different from the what the problem and what you are finding the solution. It totally different, it and does not have any adequate basis for the solutions or for the data. So it should be very precise and justified and limited. And the good researcher always specify the condition which is under their conclusion that seems to be valid. So these terms that should be followed for the good research. Like good research should be systematic and should be a logical. It should be a very empirical, and the good research should be a very replicable. Now the research processes approaches कौन कौन सी होती है इसमें रिसर्च में. The first is quantitative and the qualitative. And the what is the significance of the research? That is very important. When you do the research, or uh, you just make the research proposal, you have to do and also make the point what is the significance of the research in the research proposal. So always this is very important. So the role of the research is in the several fields like applied physics, applied economics, business, government policy, and other human different uh, social activities. So research provide the basis for the nearly all the government policy in our ecosystem, in the government, in the other non-governmental organization. So research is always there, and the significance. The research has a special significance in solving many operational problems, like in business, industry, or other field. So research is equally important for the social scientist is doing a study, social relationship, and seeking answer for the various social problems. So research is always very important for the researchers, for the scholars, for the student, for the academician, for the government policymaker. So this is the significance of the research. Now let's understand the research method and the methodology. So what is the difference between the methods and the methodology? very important for the exam perspective. So now let's understand. So here is the difference between the research method and the research methodology. So basically जो research method है, research methods are the method used by the researcher to collect the data to conduct research on the particular research topic. When the researcher want to study on particular topic, so he or she use that methods that we use to collect the data, that is use the research method. And whereas the research methodology is a systematic approach to solve the research problem and to reach the new conclusion. And so the research method is the objective of the research method is to find the solution, and whereby the objective of the research methodology is to determine the solution by applying correct procedural of the research. So basically research methodology concerned with the procedures. So it follows some particular procedure to resolve the problem, and this is the part, research method is the part of procedure. So you can say that the research method which is the part of research methodology. Research methods are useful for applied during the later stage of the research process. So when we follow the research process, during the research process, we just use this research method as a one of the one stage of the research process. Research methodology are applied in the initial stage of the research being conducted. When the research going to be conducted, the first thing that is the initial thing that we use, that is research methodology, and the research methods are the small part of the research methodology. As I already told you that the methodology is a big, and the research method is the part of research methodology, whereby the research methodology is a multi-dimensional concept because it follows some procedures and it is used in the initial stage of the research. And the research method consists of various techniques where various study and experiment are used to conduct research and reach to the appropriate conclusion. So it has the various different technique, and the research methodology are used applied during the initial stage of the research to explain the purpose of the choosing method, which method we are choosing during the research work, you can say in the initial stage. So this research methodology basically used to explain or why we are using this particular methods for this particular research work and how it will be serve the function. So we use the research methodology. Research methods consist of different investigation techniques, the different techniques that we will discuss. And the research methodology is the systematic strategy to achieve the decided objective. So, what is the objective of your study? So, we just use the research methodology as a procedure to achieve this objective of the research. Whereas the research method is the just a techniques that we use, like different techniques. You can see here the techniques like if we are doing the library research, so this is the type. So what we use method is the analysis of historical event, or the second method we use in library research is analysis of the document. So through analyzing the document or analyzing the historical records, we can do the library research. In the library research, we follow some different techniques like recording of the notes, content analysis, tape and the film listening, and the analysis. And for the analysis of the documents, we use the technique that is historical and the manipulation, references, and abstract guidance content analysis. So these are the technique that we follow during the different library research work. Now next type, that is the field research. In the field research, we use this method, that is non-participatory direct observation method, and participatory observation method, mass observation, mail questionnaires, opinionaires, personal interview, focus group interview, telegram survey, telephone survey. So these are the method and these are the techniques like for the participation observation we use interaction recordings, possible use of the tape recorders. So when we interact with the respondent, we just record the conversation, and we just collect photographic techniques also used for this participation observation. For the mass observation, recordings of the mass behavior, when we interacting with the mass, when the number of the peoples was large, so we just record the behavior, the interview, and then interview using the independent observation in public places. So these collect the mass observation data, and in the same way the mail technique, mail questionnaires, opinions. So all these techniques that will be used as a for collecting the data in the field research. So I hope you now you have understood the difference between the research methodology and the research method. Method is just the part of the research methodology. Methodology is the process that we use in an initial stage of the research, and like case study and life history. So this we use the cross section collection of the data from the intensive analysis, longitudinal collection of data for the intensive character, laboratory research, the small group study of the random behaviors, play, and the role analysis. And we use the technique that in the research library, that is the use of audio visual recordings and use of the observation. So these techniques we use in the research behavior research, laboratory research. Now, now let's understand the research process. So what we follow during the research work, there is the process of research. Now you can see here the define the research problem. So what is the problem of the research? What we are going to study? So we have to find out the problem. So the first thing that is we have to define the problem, and then we review the literature, the existing literature, existing data that we follow, and review all the literature so that we can easily understand what is the gap or the research gap, and what the other researcher or scholars have done the work for a particular problem or a particular topic. So we easily find out the gap, so we can easily conduct the research. The reviews concepts and the theories, we review the previous research findings. So this is the part of the review literature. Review of literature means you are reviewing the previous work, previous scholars work, so that you can easily find out the research gap. So you can easily find out the research gap and you can formulate research hypothesis. Then we just start the designing the research process, and we collect the data from the field, from the where primary collection data, secondary, as per the research requirement. And then we analyze the data, and after analyzing the data we just interpret the data and report, find out the conclusions and findings. So then we just do the feedbacks, and if there is the problem still, then we follow same process, or and we will reach to the end. So this is the process of the research. If there is a question regarding the research process, you can easily solve the question, like starting from the definition of the problem and to the find out the analyze the data and reaching to the conclusion. Now the here's the first, that is we have defined the research problem. So first of all we have to understand the research formulating the problem. So how we formulate the problem? The problem formulation is the key into the research process for researcher. The problem formatting means converting the management problem into the research problem. So any problems, but what we have to convert this problem into the research problem so that we can follow some systematic approach to solve the problems. So like for example, we have a problem like want to increase the sale of the product A. Okay, this is the management problem, but we can't do research on this particular problem because we have to convert this problem as a research problem, like what is the current standing of the product A. So we have to find out the current standing, so we can easily find out the problem, basically what is the problem for the current standing of the product A. Then we start the work or research work on this particular product A. So this is called as research problem. So once we just there is the famous saying that the problem well defined is the half solved. If the problem is well defined, then we can easily solve the problem because it is already half solved. So this statement is strictly true in the research, because if the problem is not stated properly, the objective will not be clear. If the objective will not be clear, definitely the data collection become very difficult, very meaningless. Second, that is the review of literature. So as I told you, in the process of the research, we just find out, we just search for the theories, we concept and the models that are already available. So we just review these previous findings and identify the gap between the work that we are going to study. Because if you are going to study something which is already available, then what is the importance of your work? So we have to find out the gap between what already have done and what you are going to study. So these things are very important for us searching the theories, concept, models, reviewing the previous findings, previous work, and identify the gap and the through the various resources. So the place of the literature review in the research, basic research process, the first the problem identification, formulation of the objective, and the methodology we follows. As I already told you that the methodology that we use in initial stage of the work, Then we start the data collection, data processing, data analyzing, report, making the report, also bringing the clarity and focus to the research problem. And then we improve the research methodology, and also broadening the knowledge base in the research area. So this is the place that we use follow the research review, literature review in the research basic research process. Now, what is the need for the literature review? That literature review is the basically survey of previous work, previous research topic, an area published already in journals, books, internet, and different sources. So we just review, and it helped to the researcher to formalize the himself herself with the topic, just so he can familiar with the topic that already available. And also they are going to be study particular they have chosen topics, so we just familiarized to that himself. And it ensure that we do not replicate the topic. That means we are not going to be cover the topic that already cover. So identify gap in knowledge and unresolved problems that we could take up for the study. What we are going to study that should not be already available, or the problem should be different, and also we just can increase the knowledge and can find out the knowledge gap. So examine available literature for the appropriate second data, like fast and the extensive way of conducting exploratory research. So these are the basically, yeah, we have done the need for the research review. What is the need of literature review? Giving valuable insights. And what is the outcome of the literature review? So when we do the review of literature, when we study the previous findings, so what is the outcome? It enables the contextual findings, okay, and the familiarizing with the new research concept, and also that will provide the understanding concept from other researcher point of view, as other researcher scholars also have done some work, so you can easily understand the concept of different researcher. And that can increase the searching existing literature and conceptualizing hypothesis, that reviewing the selected literature for the in-depth understanding and broader knowledge basis. So we can use these literature and providing framework for the further research, and compare research work in context of what already have been done. So it could be very beneficial for the comparing the work, and it will identify the research gap. That is the most important. The most important thing that we do in the research work, research review of literature, is that we just find out the gap, what is the gap remaining, so we can conduct the study on particular gap. Next step, that is the developing the working hypothesis. So an idea that is suggested as the possible explanation of the something, but has not yet to be found to be true or collected. That means something we have it's just like a tentative or theory, you can say. It's the validity of this not yet proved, or it's not a true, it's just a hypothesis. We just use it as a tentative assumption regarding the solution of the problem. So under the study, so the kind of data to be collected, the tools that we use, and the tool to analyzing the influences by the hypothesis. For example, if you eat more vegetable, so this is the example for the understanding the hypothesis. If you eat more vegetable, you will lose weight faster. So is it possible? So this is the hypothesis. We just make previous assumptions about particular phenomena. Then we try to prove it. If it will it prove true, then it is the your hypothesis will be proved, and otherwise you use another hypothesis. Now the next step in the research process, that is a research proposal. So research proposal is a summary, or you can say this is the outline summary of the research objective. It contains the objective, it contains questions and different research methodology that we follow during the research work, and what is the benefit, what is the significance of the study. So all these steps in a very summarized way is contained, is written in the research proposal. So it is called as a research proposal. You can say it's just a roadmap of doing. If you are doing something, you just make some work, you can just a proposal, so you can easily follow some procedures to reach the outline. So basically research proposal is the provide the direction, is the proper direction to the research work. Next next point, that is a research design. So research design basically refer to the overall strategy that we follow basically in the research work. So different component, and it provide very logical way. So it will ensure effectiveness, collection of data, measurement, and analysis of data. So note the research problem determine the type of design. Basically, what kind of problem will determine what kind of design we follow, we use in the research work. Next is sampling design. So sampling design include a decision on the sample and sampling unit, sample size, what is the size of sample, what is the sampling method we use. So this is a part sampling design. Sampling unit means it is the most elementary unit which would be a part of the study. So, for example, in a survey on the newspaper readership pattern, a single household comprises all the member of the household. Okay, and that can be regarded as a sample unit. Okay, this family is as a sample unit, and the size of the sample depend on the factor like the and another part of the sampling design is at the size of sample. So, what is the size of sample? The availability of the time and the fund to the researcher. So these factors will determine, you can say, the size of sample, the availability of the researcher, and the size of the population and the nature of the population. So these factors are responsible, or you can say these size of sample depend on these factors. And method of drawing sample, the probability methods that we use of sampling involve giving every member a known or the unbiased chance to being part of the sample. So that is called as probability. When every sample, or you can say every member, every stakeholder that you are going to be study, it become the part of the sample and become the chance to be selected as a sample. Non-probability methods is the element of biasness. You can say the researcher will select a part of the sample is basically already known, or you can say there is no probability of selecting the particular. So element of bias is involved in this. The probability of unit being a part of the sample is not known. The method of getting the data is planned in data collection design, and few data collection techniques are questionnaires, interviews, survey, observations. So these are the collection of these the method of collection, collecting the data. So these are the techniques. And the instrument design, the researcher while designing the questionnaires, they must think in the terms like types of data, communication approach, what the communication approach that follows in the researcher during the designing of the questionnaires, and what kind of question structure and the board question boarding. So all these things that you have to researcher while designing the questionnaire, think all these steps. Next is data collection. So this is the very important part of the research. The data collection, that is basically the search for the answer to the research question is called as data collection. So the source of data collection only two types. There is the primary data and the secondary data. So primary data is the first hand information that you collected, and the secondary data you collected from the already available data, like from the different source like internet, newspapers, and something like that, that population census and something, so which is already available. And primary is the first hand information that is collected directly by going to the field. Next is data analysis. Once you collected the data, you follow some procedure just to analyze the data like editing, coding, tabulation. Editing means the collected data should be scanned in to make sure that the collected and the all the instructions that are followed, the process is called as editing. And coding means assigning number to each of the answer so that that can be tabulated easily, because tabulation is the process where you have to arrange the data in a proper way in a tabulation form. So you have to mark every detail in the numbers. So the process called as coding, and tabulation means the process of orderly arrangement of the data in a tabular form. And the statistical analysis in the last stage, the tabulation and the tabulated data is analyzed using the various statistics techniques like average, percentage, trends analysis, correlation, regression techniques. These techniques follow during the statistical analysis. Now the next step, that is the hypothesis testing. Hypothesis testing that will be helpful for the researcher in the establishing the validity of his result. उसका जो भी रिजल्ट है, what the result he or she have. So just for the validity we just use the hypothesis testing. That will be very helpful to state, clarify, and clearly that the whether the what's the difference between what we have received or what we have collected data and what we have assumption during the hypothesis assumption. So what is the difference? So we just do the hypothesis testing. So if any between the two values is due to the change, or you can chances enhanced to be attributed as a insignificance, or if the difference is the actual and it is a significant. So these things that have to be testing during the hypothesis testing. Next step, that is the data interpretation and the generalization. For a study in which no hypothesis has been tested, the data interpretation is done with the intention of seeking explanation for the research result on the basis of existing theory. And in case the hypothesis testing is done, then the data has to be analyzed and tested repeatedly for the arriving at the conclusion. So if you're using the hypothesis testing, then you have to analyze the data, generalize the data, and are made to build the new theory. If there is no hypothesis testing, then the data interpretation is done for the intention to seeking the explanation. And next step, that is the reporting of the result. So this is the final, or you can say last steps, basically concerned with the bringing the public the result of the research. So what going to be a result of the particular research that can be possible, or you can see in the final stage that can be found. So now here's the, you can see, so that the finding can be put in some issue. Here's the steps that we involve during the research work. In a primary section, what the primary section contain the title of the research report, and what is the table that we use in this, the content of table. So all these steps very important एग्जाम में, इससे कई बार क्वेश्चन पूछे जाते हैं. So many question asked during the exam कि what are the steps, or what are the main section of the research work. So like primary stage, secondary, or you manage text section, or the end stage. So these are the most important. So you have to the primary section that contain the title of the report. The first, that is the title. Second, that is the table of content. Okay, what the content, we have to make the table form and mention all this by page number and something like that, but every in every column. And the list of the tables and graphs, what tables and graphs you use during your research work. In between the research work, so you have to first mention in the first chapter. And the preface, or executive summary, the summary of the work you have to mention in the primary section. Next, that is the main text section. So which contain the problem of background. What is the problem basically? You have to explain properly. And what is the objective of the research? The methodology that you follow, you use during the research work, and the importance of the conducting the research. What is the significance? You have to mention in the main text section. And what is the conclusion arriving at the last stage? That is also that is also come in the main text section. And in the end section, which include appendices. So appendices supporting the research with item like questionnaire. So what do you use? Questionnaire schedules and glossary of the items that you use for the research work, that have to be attached with the appendices in the last section. Okay, any other matter which although not a part of the main, if any other matter, any other thing which is not part of the main context or the primary text, then we use, and then we collect this use in the end section in order to support the research that can be included. So this is the three steps: primary, main text, and the end section. This is very important. You have to learn this table. Now the research problem. A research problem basically in general you can say they refer to the some difficult which the researcher experience in the context of the either theoretical or the practical situation, and want to obtain the solution of the same. Say the problem basically you use to obtain the solution of particular problem. The researcher work on the this problem, particular problem, any situation, or any phenomena. Now the first the selecting the problem. How you select the problem? First, the subject which is overdone should not be normally chosen. For it, it will be a difficult to task to throw any new light in a such cases. So, controversial subjects should not be become the choice of average researcher. If we are new researcher or new researcher, we just choose something which is not controversial, which is very simple. For that, we can easily find out the find out the data. So we have to choose some types of problems, not very controversial, that very difficult become collecting the data. And too narrow or too bug problems should not be, should be also avoided. We don't have to choose such types of problems like that is very narrow or very vague. And the subject selected for the research should be familiar and feasible, so that the related research material or sources that can be easily available, so that you can find out, you can review the literature also. So you have to choose the topic which is very familiar or feasible. And necessity of the defining problem. So what is the necessity? So a proper definition of the research problem will enable the researcher to be a track the question like what data are to be collected, and what characteristics of data are relevant and need to be studied, and what relation are to be explored. So these are the necessities, that's why we define the problem. So what techniques that are to be used for the purpose and all these things. Thus, the defining research problem properly is the prerequisite for any study. So, we do study, first we have to define the problem, and is the step for highest importance where was ill-defined problem may be create hurdles. If you are not able to define the problem, how can you do study? So first you have to define the problem properly. So all the effort, time, money spent, all these things that we have very wasted, if we unable to explain or define the problem, or that problem is the very misunderstood or it ill defined, then all the efforts will be gone, it will become very waste. And the techniques that involve in the defining problem, कौन सी techniques we use करते हैं? So for defining the problem, like what's the nature of problem, and the survey the available literature, and developing the ideas through the discussions, then we find out the then we define the problems. Statement of the problems in general way, like first of all the problem should be stated in the broad general way, then keeping in the view either some practical concern or some scientific or some intellectual interest. For this purpose, the researcher must immerse himself thoroughly the subjects, all these subjects. I would discuss the understanding the nature. What is the nature? What is the available data or resources available? So we can easily define the particular problem when developing the idea through the discussion. And the source for the problem identification, how you identify the problem. So what are the sources we have to study, like research reports already available, or you can say published, maybe as I referred as the for defining the specific problem. And assistance of any research organization which handles a number of the project of the companies, that can be also sorted to be identify the problems. And the professors working in the reputed academic institutions, that can also very helpful, and that can provide the guide to the problem identification. Like, and company employees and competitors, they can also assist in identifying the problem. So these are the you can say from this you can collect, or these are the source. So you can easily find out the problem, what is the problem, you can identify. Problem encountered by the research in India. When we talk about the research, especially in India, so in India the researcher always face some problems, especially in the research work, like the lack of the scientific training available in the India, and the in the methodology in research work, and the insufficient interaction between the universities research department on the one side, and business establishment, government department, and research institutions. Basically is the insufficient the interaction between the parties. And also many researchers in our country are face difficulty for adequate and timely secretary assistant, including computer assistant concept, or also unnecessary delay, also delay the work research work study. And library management is also not good, and you can see the function, library function is not satisfactory at a place. So the time and the energy of the researcher just spent in the tracking out the books, journalist reports. So these are the problem of the researchers in India. And say the criteria of a good research problems, like originality and cost and time feasibility. So these are the criteria. And clarity and ambiguity, interest and curiosity, importance and applicable, and feasibility with the researcher's ability. So these are the criteria. And so all these you can say the first, that is the originality. So basically the first thing that in the research that should keep in the mind, that the good research problem is original and it's not a duplicate of existing work. Okay, so the researcher may work in existing study, but with the objective of this reinterpreting the knowledge or you can say known findings. Next, second, there is a charity and ambiguity. A second feature that is should be that the problem is clearly state and express relationship between the variables. If we have different variables, we have to clarify properly. So there should not be a no ambiguity in the variables in the work, like studying the relationship between family condition and the performance of the student. So it is a poorly statement problem. In this problem, the term family condition is not basically very vague. It's not clearly defined, so it does not have a specific meaning of family condition. So it should not be some type these types of the problems. It should be very clear or very clarify interest and the curiosity. The researcher should have some interest and have some curiosity for the work, and the importance and the applicable. The outcome of the research of the result of the work is should be very applicable in solving the problems that is being faced by the society, organization, or government. So it should have some importance or applicable, and it should be have some application in the society. Feasibility with the researcher ability, and also researcher should choose a problem that is within his capability. If the researcher have some capability, so he can choose the topic or problem as per their capability or strength. So it should match with the competency qualification of the researcher. And cost, time, feasibility, this is also important, that the researcher should take care that he has the sufficient financial resources required to undertake the research. And further, he should clarify, evaluate the time schedule required to complete the research. So these are the steps that is required for the good work, or you can see these criteria. So what are the ethics in the research? So ethics is the norms, you can say, or you can say there's the standard of behavior that the guide moral choice about our behavior and our relationship between the others. When the researcher just conduct the study or have some interview or discussion with the participant or population, they should follow some norms or standard of the behavior. So that is called ethics. So the goal of the ethics basically in the research is to ensure that no one is harmed or suffer adverse consequences from the research activity. So what the research activity have done in a particular area or with a particular population, so they should ensure that there is no harm or there is no bad consequences of the research work. So principle that is the autonomy, beneficence, justice, and the non-maleficence. So these are the principle of ethics in the research. Like first, that is the autonomy. The obligation of the part of the investigator is to respect each participant, and each participant as the person capable of making an informed decision regarding participation in the research study. So they should have some autonomy. So if you are asking question with the participant or the particular population, so they should have some autonomy, and the investigator should give some respect to their choice and what they are saying and the capability. And beneficence obligation on the part of the investigator to attempt the maximize benefits for the individual participant. Every participant that we are going to participate in the process, there should be also a maximize benefits and society while minimizing the risk of harms to the individuals. Next is justice. Demand equitable selection of the participant, like avoiding participant of population that may be unfairly coerced into the participating, such as prisoners. We have to look at this the justice that what we are participating the some like sometimes the prisoners, we have to avoid participants such this population. And non maleficence, it suggests that the proposed research project involve human participants should not be cause them harm. उनको कोई किसी प्रकार का कोई नुकसान नहीं होना चाहिए. They should not be harmed by any project work. So these are the follow. They have to. These are the principle of the ethics that the researcher or the investigator should follow during the research work. So this is all about today, and I hope if you like this video, please share with your friends so they can also get this benefit of this lecture. And thank you very much.